Hey, it's Luke Frazier, CEO of Stepwise Innovation, and welcome to the Stepwise Innovation interview series, where we speak with innovation leaders and practitioners to hear about their experience in the space and to get some tips and advice on how we can all make more of an impact. To listen to all the interviews and to learn more about Stepwise, head over to stepwiseinnovation.com. We recently had David Lanphear on the innovation series. David works as a manager of product discovery at Guardian Life Insurance and has worked in new product development, business design, and innovation for the entirety of his career. Take a listen to the episode to hear about David's transition from engineer to business designer, how he employs a tool called negative prototyping into his work, and why he thinks that the beginning and the end of innovation projects are the hardest parts. Take a listen.
So my name is David Lanphear. I am the lead user researcher and business designer for the innovation team at Guardian Life. I also have a couple of side hustles, as many kind of millennials and Gen Zers do. So kind of wear a bunch of hats trying to help people build their best selves.
Oh, very cool. How'd you end up at this Guardian role? Like, how long have you been in this space?
Yeah, so I've been in insurance my entire career, so about 12 years now, in different capacities. I'm a recovering engineer on the IT side of the house. So I did IT specific things for the first 5 years or so of my career before getting into more incremental innovation. So talking about like lean, talking about agile. And those were really good. Those are good foundational sort of principles that share a lot with human-centered design and design thinking. But with those more incremental value adds, there was something missing for me personally. There was never that reimagination or let's put things in a next broader context, which is really what I desired for. I wanted to be that entrepreneur at my company. I've always had a passion for really thinking outside of the box and challenging different confines, and was fortunate enough to become a part of the very first IT innovation team at Liberty Mutual Insurance back in the day. So I took that role, kind of invented that role with only a couple of other colleagues, and the rest is pretty much history.
Super cool. You mentioned a lot there, so just want to dig in. You mentioned your role now is researcher and business designer. What do those two things mean?
Yeah, it's a really good question. And I think the terminologies, they change very frequently. So it's what I answer now could be different 2 years from now. I've also had roles as like product manager and product owner, and those can mean a bunch of different things to different people as well. But it's kind of the part of the three-legged stool. So there's like that product person that's more of a business person. Then there's more of a kind of designer, and people get wrapped up in the idea of visual design. Design is very broad in and of itself. So I'm more of that user researcher in that research design role, product design role. And then you have kind of the technical or the implementation leg of that stool. So I don't stand as much on that technical implementation side. It's more of my IT days. A lot of things that we build are digital. So I kind of hand off some of those, although prototyping, I'll get my hands a little bit dirty. That's part of innovation. You touch every aspect, but I specialize in more of the sort of business design. So creating, various little pro formas, or, how much theoretically could we capture of the market over a series of time once we have an idea of what the product might look like. And then the product design aspect, that's asking the right questions and designing the right product to fulfill some unmet market need. So those are kind of my two areas of specialization.
Cool. So you mentioned you've worked in incremental innovation and as well as kind of the reimagination space.
Yeah.
The team you're on now, like, what's the mandate?
It's a great question. It could be anything at any time, but we're much more specialized in that broader challenge, those higher level opportunity areas that kind of challenge some of our key assumptions. So to give you an example, came across my desk kind of the other day, and this isn't something that I'll take. So we have projects from probably about, a few days to a few months in length. So we may be helping, and we are helping with our life insurance group. kind of reimagine what life insurance is and what it means to people. And we'll explore lots of different things. We're starting with just an ideation session to get the juices flowing before we go and explore in more detail and bring in quantitative and qualitative data to then run a more sort of thorough study that may last, a couple of months as opposed to a couple of days. But it's really about meeting our business partners wherever they are at and wherever their core need is to begin. So that may be a little bit more incremental and it may be just a couple of days to start. But once you gain that sort of internal buy-in and once you gain that trust and understanding and empathy around what the challenges of your business are, that helps you then take things and scale them and really help to do more of that reimagination that I think, at least myself, I'll speak for myself, I really enjoy and I see the most benefit out of.
Super cool. Yeah. What's the best part about working in kind of like the reimagination space for you?
Yeah, it's the ability to put out ideas that won't work and validating and challenging that they won't work. So I always love to include kind of a negative. People are always fighting for supremacy of ideas, right? Like I think my idea is going to really impact the world in some way. I think this variant is really where we need to go. And I just love to turn that around 180 and say, well, let's build the opposite of your idea, just to kind of play with that and challenge some of our latent assumptions in there. Because a lot of times we'll get so baked into what we think is right that we forget to kind of take it back and explore what and why things are so wrong. And when you start asking that sort of why question, that's when to get back to kind of the question you asked, it helps you to elicit those kind of groundbreaking sort of insights and ideation moments. So that's what I love is in innovation in particular is just having what someone says and what they're doing be a complete opposites, or building a prototype that does one thing and a prototype that does the exact opposite, and then seeing where people kind of collide in their mentality and their thinking. That's really fun to me, is to take those little nuggets apart to try to understand kind of the human condition at like that next deeper layer.
Super cool.
I don't know if that made a ton of sense, but like it's really fun.
No, I love it. Super provocative. If it's not provocative and doesn't make total sense, then we're in the right direction.
Great.
Actually, I do have questions about, so making a prototype that does one thing and a prototype that does another thing. When would you do that? Yeah, tell me more about that.
Yeah. I mean, do it strategically. I like doing it as much as possible personally, just because it challenges myself. It really helps me to try to unwrap why I believe a certain thing and challenge why that thing may exist. So if I am looking at a life product and we're calling something, a life product, maybe I'll turn around and create something that's focused more on the death instead of the life. And then I'll look at that dichotomy of what are we really ensuring here? We're kind of actually ensuring death, but we're calling it life. And then we can kind of flip it around and kind of understand and play with, well, what is our offering? What is it geared towards? What are the subliminal differences? What are people thinking about and experiencing on this like scale of journey between birth and death? And it sounds very like high level, kind of fluffy. But once you do that, that's really the open and the broadening imagination space where now you have a ton of room to play and understand not only life and death, but like well-being and the journey between the two and what connects the two. And those are the points that you're going to have to sell your product to bring it back to the business. You always need to have that business lens as you're exploring kind of throughout all of these things as well. So just unwrapping kind of the hidden meanings between point A and point B and kind of pitting them against each other helps open up a kind of whole journey of possibilities and validates them when you bring them into either co-creation sessions with your peers. Like, let's talk about this in a completely different way. What if we focus on death in life insurance, or bringing it to regular consumers who maybe have or don't have life insurance? Why do they have it? What do you focus on or what do you think about the claims experience? What should it be? And it's probably more about death. What do you think about the buying experience? It's focused more on life. Like, how do we kind of tie those things together and make one complete experience?
Cool. I love it. Do you have a term for that? You should
I should coin one, right?
Making some
I'm
money
sure
off of
someone
that.
has. There's tons
Yeah.
of books. I have a bunch of books behind me.
Books.
Someone's done it.
Yeah. So take that away from the insurance space, just to, because I think it's super neat that's a really tangible way to explore tensions. Let's say we were working on something in like food delivery.
Sure.
So the solution space is focused on like getting meals to you fast. So you might explore like what's like a hunger solution, like what solution would make me super hungry, the opposite of satiation.
Yeah.
Or like what would be like the slowest
Right.
way,
And that's kind of where my head went.
Okay.
Yeah. Like what if there was like, we always think like speed of service, but you need something at a certain time. So that kind of becomes catering, right? What if we offered more of a catering approach instead of a Grubhub, Uber Eats
Yeah.
sort of approach? Like what are the differences there? Is there a blending where catering might be doing something right that's more, you have to order ahead, you really have to plan many days in advance, you have to get a head count of who's going to be there, maybe there's details about who's going to be eating these things, dietary restrictions. So like all of those will help bring forth and help create a better, potentially even faster, like Uber Eats, if you were to explore something that is the antithesis of Uber Eats.
Right. No, that's super neat. All right. So on the other side of the coin, you've worked in reimagination in a few different corporate environments. What's the hardest part about it?
It's a good, I think it's the same. It's been very similar struggles everywhere. And that's always kind of twofold. It's at the beginning and it's at the end. The middle is very fun. Once you're on a journey, it's great. But getting that sort of buy-in up front and bringing the people along with you who can take everything and run with it on the back end. So the biggest part is just establishing at the front that rapport and the ability to make an impact that directly affects some present part of your organization. What's the low hanging fruit? So if it's just running an ideation session, if it's helping do one user interview, if it's exploring some data or running a quant survey for someone to help them kind of peel back the onion, that maybe it's asking questions around, hey, do we even check NPS? Do we have any sort of user experience standards? Do we have a customer panel that can help us answer some of these questions? How routinely are our product people going out and having access to some of our customers, or even if they're not our customers, if we don't have that buy-in yet, how much do they have access to a general consumer who may be interested in our product to answer and ask those questions? So removing barriers for other people initially can be a really good place to start. And then on the back end, once you have that allowance, you've built up some of that credibility, it can be really hard to bring your findings and inject them back into the organization, especially if they have, I stated at the beginning, I have a role as business designer, right? Well, if the business is very used to doing something some sort of way, and then you create a challenging almost competitor or subsegment of something that someone is already running, it's very natural for that person or that part of the organization to reject the good ideas you may have. And that may happen once, twice, 3 times. It's really the democratization of those ideas that you want to bring forward. Because if you keep coming up and keep coming alongside of these people with ideas, you will help to break them down and you will see influence, even if it's that your exact solution isn't adopted or isn't brought to light. It's very probable that over time you will see impacts to the larger organization.
Cool. So to play that back to, you mentioned the beginning, the end. So the upfront buy-in of like maybe new methods and new thinking can be difficult. So the best way to do that is like identify quick ways that you can help partners, clients, internal teams, like remove barriers, show value fast. And that can be a 1-hour session or like a conversation. as small as that.
Yeah. Don't try to boil the ocean, right? Everyone tries. You have come in with grand ideas, a whole process, and some of these can be pretty prescriptive. You get the double diamond, and this is exactly what I want to do now. And then we got to go big, and then we got to go small. And we're not at the end of this diamond yet. We're only in the middle. Let's not get stuck in. It's okay. Like, do what you can at the beginning to then eventually get to that next step.
Very cool. And then at the end of it, you've done great work, have some great opportunities or ideas.
Oh, thanks, Luke. I know.
Oh, not you. Your team that you hired.
Right.
I'm just kidding. It can be difficult for like the org to accept those. Have you heard you've heard the like corporate immune system, right? Like a rejection of things that are different. So what I got from you is don't give up. Like sometimes the first ones aren't going to hold. And that even if the solution or suggestion you initially had doesn't seep in, there might be a variation of that does hold.
Yeah. Bring the insights to life and let those kind of live through the organization. If you have really unique insights, so those are kind of the things in the middle before you get to the solution. It's kind of what the solution becomes at the end. Just let the insights really fester with people so that they're always thinking about that assumption that you challenge and that you showed them with quant and with qualitative data that, hey, consumers actually view this just a little bit different. And hopefully that will shift hearts and minds, as they say, right, towards that more true of gold star. Because that's really all that we are. We're fact finders on a mission to help chart a new path that's more directly correlated with user desire and user needs, and will ultimately help the business succeed at a higher level than they could have before.
Awesome. All right. So imagine you're talking with someone who is new to an innovation leadership role. They're tasked with starting innovation in their company and maybe have never done this before. What early advice would you give them?
Good luck. But really you'll get there. Lean on just doing. Have a bias to action. When I took my first role, I mentioned that I kind of helped to define what the role was within the technology organization that I was in. I did not know what I was doing. So I highly empathize with you. If you're your first time kind of innovator, it's going to feel uncomfortable. I think it was my second day on the job that I was running an ideation session. I literally just picked up one of the books that IDEO was like recommending or something. So get familiar with IDEO, get familiar with some of the professionals, take just a single course and then practice it. Like you may feel silly. You're going to feel like you don't know what you're doing and you probably don't. That's probably legitimate. But it's really, it's addictive. Once you get over that initial sort of stage fright of imposter syndrome, you're gonna start to see results and you're gonna grow on those results and build your own repertoire of understanding as you continue to grow and develop. I don't think that I felt fully comfortable in what innovation was until probably 2+ years in. And if you think about doctors, right, what are they called? They're called practitioners. They're still practicing. They're still, figuring things out as they go with each individual. So no circumstance is exactly like one that you've seen in the past. If doctors are still practicing and they've gone through how much schooling for that, like we're always practitioners and learners ourselves. And that's just the core fundamental truth of what it means to innovate. So you'll get there. Reach out if you need any help. Throw stuff in the comments. I'm sure Luke would love that. And we're more than happy to come together as a community and guide you along.
We'll share your TikTok account on this too. No, that's awesome. The last couple points here, you mentioned it a little bit with the double diamond, but for someone new to the role, like what sort of structure should they be seeking or not in their processes? Like, should from super structured, we're going to follow this methodology to a T, to like no structure at all? How do you think about that?
Yeah, at first structure can be very useful. And I definitely think there's a time and place for it. But as you mature, you'll start to understand you don't need to start with framing the perfect question, or you don't need to necessarily end with a functional prototype at the end. It's okay to kind of jump in at any stage. You can start with data. You can start with qualitative interviews. You can start with market research. The whole idea is to find opportunities that exist within your environment and then create solutions and then test with real people against those kind of made up ideas. And just doing that on a continuous basis is the fundamental truth of innovation. No matter if you do the double diamond approach, if you do experience points approach, if you do IDEO's little changing methodology, they're all centered on find opportunities, create solutions, make your ideas real and tangible, and then just always be seeking a new truth to make them better.